watching World News program, coming to you live from Algiers. I'm your host Miriam Zian, and these are the headlines. African Union Executive Council praises Algeria's leading role in advancing continental integration, commends Algeria's youth development and cultural initiatives. Algeria praises South Africa's G20 presidency, and Attaf calls for unifying Africa's voice, inspired by the Oran process. Next, Algerian president orders the immediate return of Algeria's ambassador to Niamey, as the foreign ministry says the move reflects President Tebboun's strong commitment to strengthening cooperation and good neighborly relations with Niger, while a high-level Algerian ministerial delegation visits Burkina Faso to boost bilateral partnership. Also coming up, Algeria and the European Union reaffirmed their commitment to strengthening strategic energy cooperation. Algeria reiterates its position as a secure and reliable gas supplier, calls for deeper balanced dialogue and an integrated vision for the energy transition. The EU describes Algeria as a key partner in gas supplies. And deadly Russian missile strikes hit several Ukrainian cities. Moscow announces it thwarted an attack on Volgograd. Zelensky conditions elections on security guarantees and urges Washington to increase pressure on Russia to end the war. Welcome to the details. The 48th Ordinary Session of the African Union Executive Council adopted a package of decisions commending Algeria's continental role and its initiatives to strengthen African integration. The correspondent of All24 News in Addis Ababa reported that the Executive Council praised Algeria's efforts under the leadership of President Abdelmajid Tebboune, particularly the well-organized hosting of the Intra-African Trade Fair. The Council highlighted the broad and high-level participation in the youth, or in the fourth edition of this major continental event, which Algeria hosted last September. The African Union Executive Council congratulated Algeria on its outstanding organization of the first ministerial conference on local pharmaceutical production and health technologies in Africa, held last November. The All24 News correspondent at the African Union headquarters confirmed that the 48th Ordinary Session held in Addis Ababa recognized Algeria's leading role in promoting the pharmaceutical industry, as well as the significant measures taken by the Algerian government to support local drug manufacturing. This recognition came within a resolution adopted as part of a report on the activities of the Africa Centers for Disease Control and Prevention Africa CDC. The African Union Executive Council praised Algeria's leadership in youth development. You followed it in our top stories, particularly through the launch of the Million Level Initiative. The 48th session encouraged member states to draw inspiration from Algeria's experience in empowering African youth. The Council also recognized progress on the Great Museum of Africa in Algeria, urging continued support as a strategic project under Africa's Agenda 2063, and commended Algeria for successfully organizing African Creativity Week. Algerian Minister of State and Minister of Foreign Affairs Ahmed Attaf praised South Africa's distinguished and dynamic presidency of the G20, reaffirming Algeria's support for Pretoria amid the challenges it faces in this role. In a speech delivered during a session reviewing the African Union's participation in the G20, Attaf stated that the Johannesburg summit strengthened Africa's standing and amplified its voice, while reintegrating Africa's priorities and aspirations into the core of global economic development discussions.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to express full gratitude and appreciation to the sisterly Republic of South Africa for its distinguished and outstanding presidency of the G20. I reaffirm our support and solidarity for it in light of the challenges it faces in this context. Our collective memory will undoubtedly preserve the Johannesburg Summit, not only as the first G20 summit held under African presidency and on African soil, but also as the first G20 summit that affirmed Africa's position, the first G20 summit that listened to Africa's voice, and the first to reinstate Africa's priorities and aspirations at the heart of the concerns of the problematic of economic development at international level.
Minister Attaf described the outcomes of the Johannesburg G20 summit as a major gain for Africa, stressing the importance of optimal preparation for the African Union's participation in the bloc in order to help pull the continent out of marginalization and exclusion. Let's take a listen.
إن مخرجات هذه القمة تمثل The outcomes of this summit constitute an important gain for our continent, a gain that should be leveraged and built upon as part of the African Union's permanent membership in the G20. Algeria reiterates the importance of optimal preparation for the African Union's participation in this group, because participation is not an end in itself, but rather a means that we hope will contribute in bailing our continent out of marginalization and exclusion.
The Algerian foreign minister also called for drawing inspiration from the Oran process to unify Africa's voice within the G20.
من هذا المنظور فإن وفد بلادي يدعم From this perspective, my country's delegation supports the measures previously adopted to share representation responsibilities between the Commission and the rotating presidency, and proposes drawing inspiration from the Oran process experience to unify the African voice within the G20 as well.
And representing Mr. President Abdelmajid Tebboune, Algerian Prime Minister Sifi Ghraib arrived Thursday in Addis Ababa to attend the 39th African Union Summit and the Africa-Italy Summit. He was received at Bole International Airport by Ethiopia's Minister of Innovation and Technology, Belete Mola, alongside Algeria's Foreign Minister Ahmed Attaf, Secretary of State Sofiane Shayeb, and Algeria's ambassador to Ethiopia. The Prime Minister's office, Saïd Ghraib, will participate in high-level meetings on the sidelines of the African Peer Review Mechanism, the Committee on Climate Change, and the Committee of 10 on UN Security Council reform. The Algerian Foreign Ministry said the discussions reviewed brotherly relations and cooperation between the two countries and explored ways to strengthen them, ahead of the next session of the Algeria-Mauritania Joint High Commission, in line with the leaders' strategic vision for a bilateral partnership. The ministers also coordinated positions on developments in their shared regional neighborhood. Namibia reaffirmed its firm and unwavering support for the struggle of the Sahrawi people to exercise their right to self-determination and independence. In a press statement following her meeting with Algeria's Foreign Minister Ahmed Attaf on Thursday, Namibia's Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, Selma Ashipala Musayavi, stressed that her country's stance on the Sahrawi cause will not change.
Palestine, we both support the people of Palestine. On Western Sahara, Namibia's position has been very firm, long-standing, that we support self-determination of the people of Western Sahara, and our support will remain, it will not change.
In the same context, Namibia expressed its desire to strengthen bilateral cooperation with Algeria, particularly in the economic field. In a press statement after her meeting with Ahmed Attaf on Thursday, Selma Ashipala Musayavi said Windhoek and Algiers discussed enhancing multilateral coordination to amplify both countries' voices, including within the African Union and the United Nations, as well as holding the next session of the Joint Cooperation Commission in support of their shared ambitious goals.
On the margins of multilateral meetings, we will come together and exchange views about our bilateral relations. Our two countries are very close. Algeria stood with us during our liberation struggle, and now we are basically continuing with our bilateral relations and cooperation. So we want to intensify cooperation between Namibia and Algeria. but also basically improve our trade. Our trade balance is very low. We are planning to have our next Joint Commission for Cooperation, and we are really just touching base on those issues. We also touch base on multilateralism in general, the AU, the United Nations, and how we can increase our voice at those platforms for the benefit of our two peoples.
Burundi stressed the need to deepen cooperation among African states and build strong partnerships that support the African Union's sustainable development goals. Speaking to Al24 News after his meeting with Ahmed Attaf on Thursday, Burundian Foreign Minister Evariste Bizimana said his country will work to boost intra-African trade during its presidency of the African body this year.
We discussed the prospects for developing and strengthening our bilateral cooperation, and we exchanged views on Burundi's preparations within the framework of the African Union, enhanced cooperation and the establishment of a deeper continental cooperation framework. It is not only about laying the foundations for development, but also about building strong partnerships among all African countries and their partners in order to achieve sustainable and inclusive economic growth. Peace and security are essential prerequisites for development. Water has become a scarce and inexhaustible resource, which can at times generate competition and even lead to conflict. Therefore, we will emphasize the need to enable African countries to access safe drinking water. We note that African countries do not trade sufficiently among themselves, and we will make every possible effort to strengthen intra-African trade and significantly increase its volume.
And Kenya affirmed that Algeria is an important partner and praised its strong continental influence and its defense of African causes in international forums. After meeting Ahmed Attaf on Thursday, Kenyan Foreign Minister Musalia Mudavadi expressed his country's commitment to continued mutual support with Algeria, stressing the importance of convening the Joint Cooperation Commission to coordinate positions on issues of common interest.
First of all, I just want to say that we have a lot of regard for Algeria, a very strong partner for us on a bilateral basis, and also a very influential nation on matters of the continent. And I also have a lot of respect in the leadership of Honorable Attaf. So we have been discussing bilateral issues, and we need to have a JCC very soon so that we can pick up on issues. But Algeria has supported Kenya, scholarships, and so forth. And we have been supporting each other even on matters of international candidatures. So apart from that, we also had an opportunity to briefly review peace and security issues in the continent.
Lesotho's Foreign Minister Leone Mpotjoana described his country's partnership with Algeria as strategic and important. In an exclusive statement to Al24 News following his meeting with Ahmed Attaf on Wednesday, he expressed Lesotho's desire to strengthen cooperation with Algeria in key strategic sectors.
We were also looking into other avenues of cooperation between Lesotho and Algeria. And I've just made an invitation to the Honourable Minister to come to Maseru, to meet His Majesty the King, to meet the Right Honourable the Prime Minister, and to explore other areas of engagements. And we are looking at the water sector as Lesotho. Lesotho is endowed with precious waters, fresh waters from the mountains, and we are looking at cooperation between Lesotho and Algeria in the water resources management, renewable energy, fisheries, as well as water technologies. So we are looking at how we can collaborate between Lesotho and Algeria in that sector.
Also, Lesotho reaffirmed its support for the Sahrawi and Palestinian people's right to self-determination. In an exclusive statement to Al24 News, Foreign Minister Leone Mpotjoana said this support aligns with the United Nations Charter, which upholds the principle of self-determination. He also stressed the importance of building a generation of African youth capable of developing African solutions to African political and economic challenges.
currently you need students that can bring solutions to the economies of Africa. African problems, African solutions. So we are looking to the next generation to bring more solutions rather than to be the job seekers, being the employers.
Algerian President Mr. Abdelnajid Tebboune has issued instructions for the immediate return of Algeria's accredited ambassador to Niger, Niamey. In a statement, the Algerian Ministry of Foreign Affairs said President Tebboune ordered the ambassador's prompt return to Niamey, noting that the decision follows the return of Niger's ambassador to Algeria to his post and the resumption of his duties as of Thursday. The Algerian Ministry of Foreign Affairs confirmed that the decision to return Algeria's ambassador to Niamey reflects the great importance President Tebboune attaches to strengthen relations of brotherhood, cooperation, and good neighborliness with Niger. The ministry added that the move is expected to revive high-level bilateral political dialogue, resume multi-dimensional cooperation between the two countries, and advance strategic projects that support regional and continental integration. The high-level Algerian delegation arrived in Burkina Faso and will be there until the 14th of February in a visit to strengthen bilateral cooperation. Led by Energy Minister Mohamed Arqab, the delegation includes Minister of Energy and Renewable Energies Murad Ajjal and the CEO of Sonatrach and Naftal. They will hold meetings with Burkinabe officials and industry leaders in energy, mining, and industrial sectors to explore partnerships, enhance cooperation, and exchange expertise. Algeria's Energy Minister Mohamed Arqab reaffirmed Algeria's and the EU's commitment to strengthen bilateral energy cooperation with a sustainable, mutually beneficial framework. Speaking at the 6th high-level Algeria-EU Energy Dialogue in Algiers on Thursday, he emphasized continuing cooperation based on long-term security, trust, predictability, and shared responsibility.
I affirm that the talks we held today with the European Union Commissioner for Energy, Mr. Don Jorgensen, marked an important milestone in strengthening our strategic partnership in the hydrocarbon sector, particularly natural gas, as a fundamental pillar of our energy relationship.
Minister Arqab also expressed Algeria's determination to maintain its strategic position as a historic, secure, and reliable supplier of natural gas to Europe through the launch of an ambitious development plan in the hydrocarbon sector covering the entire value chain.
We reaffirm that Algeria remains a major and reliable supplier of natural gas to the European market within the framework of partnership based on trust, mutual respect, and balanced interests.
Addressing global climate challenges, Minister Arqab reiterated Algeria's commitment to a pathway aimed at further decarbonizing the gas value chain. In the same address, he called for a deep, balanced, and pragmatic dialogue to manage environmental requirements in the energy industry, one that takes into account the realities of producing countries while preserving shared interests.
We also addressed the issue of reducing methane emissions and lowering the carbon footprint, reaffirming Algeria's commitment to continuing its efforts in this field through concrete programs aimed at improving the environmental performance of the hydrocarbons value chain and contributing to international efforts to tackle climate change.
Addressing the development of the hydrogen industry, Algeria's Minister of Energy and Renewable Energies Murad Ajjal reaffirmed Algeria's ambition to become a leading regional hub for renewable hydrogen in the Mediterranean basin. Ajjal stressed the need for a clear vision of future hydrogen demand in order to develop joint projects and ensure their success.
أن تعزز مكانة الجزائر.
This would enhance Algeria's position as a reliable source of clean and sustainable energy. And during this meeting, Algeria emphasized the importance it attaches to these projects, which form a fundamental basis for fruitful cooperation between the two Mediterranean shores.
For his part, European Commissioner for Energy and Housing Dan Jørgensen said relations between Algeria and the European Union are experiencing growing momentum, particularly in the energy sector. Jørgensen noted that Algeria has been a key partner in supplying Europe with gas for decades, adding that its role is expected to become even more important in the coming phase.
Algeria has already, for decades, been a very important partner for us when it comes to gas, but it will be even more important in the future. The second point I want to mention is that we have a very big interest in also working closer together on renewable energy. Algeria has huge potential. We are in the European Union going through a transition in which we will replace fossils with renewables in time. And of course, this means that working closer together on this for the future is also very, very important for our relationship.
In other news, Ukrainian authorities reported on Thursday that a Russian missile strike hit the Dnipro region at dawn, killing at least 4 people and injuring others. Kiev Mayor Vitaly Klitschko said the attack targeted residential and non-residential buildings on both banks of the Dnipro River. Ukraine's State Emergency Service added that strikes also affected Zaporizhia and Kherson, causing civilian injuries and infrastructure damage. Russia, in turn, announced on Thursday that it repelled the Ukrainian missile attack on the Volgograd region, which sparked a fire at a military facility. Regional Governor Andrei Bocharov said on Telegram that the village of Kutulban was evacuated to ensure civilian safety due to the risk of explosions during firefighting operations. Meanwhile, the Ukrainian military said it had targeted an oil refinery in Russia's Volgograd region, a Russian military fuel depot in Crimea, and military sites in Zaporizhia. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said Ukraine will not hold elections until it receives security guarantees and a ceasefire with Russia in place. In an audio message to reporters on Wednesday, Zelensky said elections could move forward once all necessary security guarantees are secured.
We will proceed with the elections when all the necessary security guarantees are in place. I have always said that the issue of elections is raised by Ukraine's partners. Ukraine itself has never raised this issue, but we are certainly ready to hold elections. I have said that achieving this is very simple. Reach a ceasefire and then there will be elections. In other words, it is a security matter.
Zelensky also called on the U.S. to apply greater pressure on Russia if Washington seeks to bring the war to an end by summer.
Do I think the war can end? Look, it doesn't depend on Ukraine alone, but also on America, which must put pressure on Russia. I'm sorry to say must, but there is no other way. And it must put pressure on Russia. If there is a will not only on the Ukrainian side, but also on the side of the aggressor, then we will be able to end the hostilities by the summer.
The Kremlin confirmed that Russian President Vladimir Putin's position calling for a meeting with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky exclusively in Moscow has not changed. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov told reporters on Thursday that Russia continues to insist on the same conditions for holding a meeting between the two leaders. He added that Zelensky's response remains unchanged and so far reflects his refusal to travel to Moscow, according to Peskov. Sudan's Foreign Minister Muhyiddin Salem said his country is continuing efforts to achieve peace and stability. Speaking at the African Union Peace and Security Council in Addis Ababa, Salem declared that the war in Sudan has come to an end, while noting that external interference fueled the conflict. He also accused the Rapid Support Force of forces of illegally exploiting gold in areas under their control. Salem called on the AU to lift Sudan's membership suspension, reaffirming his country's commitment to working with regional and international partners to resolve the crisis and restore stability. The African Union called for an immediate ceasefire in Sudan and the resumption of political dialogue to achieve a comprehensive peaceful resolution to the ongoing crisis. Following a meeting of foreign ministers in Addis Ababa, AU Commission Chair Mahmoud Ali Yusuf reaffirmed the Union's commitment to supporting regional and international efforts to ensure security, protect civilians, and preserve Sudan's unity and territorial integrity. And 2 Palestinian children were injured early Thursday in Khan Yunis, southern Gaza, as Israeli forces carried out airstrikes and gunfire. Local media reported that soldiers fired on displaced persons' tents in Al Maslah area and also targeted homes in the Zaytun neighborhood east of Gaza City. And U.S. President Donald Trump said negotiations with Tehran will continue to explore the possibility of reaching an agreement. Following talks with the so-called Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Wednesday, Trump wrote on Truth Social that no specific decision had been reached on how to proceed regarding Iran. He added that the United States had launched strikes on Iranian nuclear sites last June, claiming Iran had previously declined to reach an agreement. The end of our program for tonight. Thank you for watching. See you tomorrow.